Live.
What's up?
Welcome back, everybody, to chatwithwillgrant.com. This is Edwin Adams, your host. And with us today, we have, I only thought there was one Will Grant, but I had no idea he was influenced by another brother. And we have him on the show today. So, Matt, welcome to the Chat with Will Grant podcast.
How's it going, everybody?
So, Matt, we are in all areas of the country, north, south, east, and west. So let's just dive into a conversation about Will Grant. I mean, I don't want to make him totally uncomfortable, Matt. So if you don't mind, Will keeps talking about one of his greatest influences in life has been his big brother. And for me, that's a different conversation than the relationship I have with my brother. So everything great that I see Will Grant do had to, in some part, come from you. So I'm glad to have you on the show to tell us not only about Will, but about your influence in your leadership.
I appreciate you having me. Yeah, I'd say Will is he's my younger, much cooler little brother, but yeah.
Now, Will, would you agree with that, or are you going to argue with him already?
Definitely younger, definitely cooler, probably a little bit better looking, but but I do have to admit that, like I said, pretty much all my best stuff came from him, from all the things that have helped me the most in my life, from the Wim Hof breathing to even the reading books, to the fitness, to fasting, to super smoothies. Pretty much all of my meat and potatoes, my creme de la creme has, come from learning from my brother. And just, I attribute most of my best attributes from just my brother leading the example, being, even as a kid, he was more of a father figure. And, we lost contact for like 14 years. And then ever since we got back in contact, he's been one of my biggest mentors and my biggest inspiration to just show me how to be a man and, how to become my best self for the ones around me.
Well, that's
me and Will even though we're so separated by age, we got a similar. I moved out when I was 14. He moved out when he's the same age. We got different versions of our mother, because of her behaviors, right? And she kind of wore herself out, but it's different versions. That's kind of a separate thing. But I think our similarities stem from, one, we're poor. And so when you're poor, right, you don't have TV, you work, you get very resourceful, and you kind of have an original mind. Like you have to think for yourself, and you have to rely on yourself. There's no backup. Will never had a backup. When he moved out on his own, he had to create his own life. He needed to think for himself. And then I never had a backup, the same thing, so that's, I think that's where, we can joke and we're fun guys, but at the same time, though, like, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, he's pretty much spot on, like, I think a big reason of that is we are 10 years apart, which, I think is cool. That's how we've got really two different sides of our mother, and but we had a lot of the same similarities, but I would definitely say that his childhood was definitely a lot more rough and tough. That's probably why he became literally the toughest person I know, mentally and physically. So,
well, look, clearly there is a transformation story that both of you have gone through. And Will, we probably know you most on this show, and we've gotten glimpses of your origin story. But Matt, you being the leader by example, I think, of the words you used earlier. I'm curious how you set your compass direction at 14 in creating your own desired outcome. Can you take us back there and how you made those choices to become the man you are today at age 14?
Yeah, so I think if I would have stayed at home, I'd be the meanest person. That's kind of what I was being. I got toughened up on a daily basis, let's just say, right? But I moved out, but I was a straight A student, so I always did good in school, and you got to play the part too, right? So I'd play the part as far as I've always worked. I've always worked since I was way little, and so you can play the part and, like, make enough money on the side. You're not going to school looking like shit, right? And when I moved out, I kind of lost my mind, actually, because it was like because I physically worked, I had a physique, right? And it's like all of a sudden you turn 15, 16 and the girls like you and you're like, where'd this come from? And partied, did all that. It was kind of and I lived with a bunch of guys that were older than me. They all went down a bad road. So actually most of them are dead or went to prison. And when I was 17, the way when I joined the Marine Corps, that's where my life changed. So I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I actually lived in the East Coast for a while, and then I came back to Washington right before I was 17. And my old principal helped me do basically an alternative program to where I can graduate. So I did almost like a year and a half of school in 2 months, and I graduated early at 17, April 2000. And a week later, I joined the Marine Corps. And I was living with these dudes in this single wide trailer. The only time I got cleaned is when girls came over and cleaned it for us, and these guys were like, I've never stole a thing in my life. It's not in my DNA, but these guys, they started like, we'd go to a party and they would come back and then we'd have like CDs and PlayStation. And they'd be like, where'd that come from? And they'd be like, oh, I stole it. And it's like, I couldn't get into it. And they kind of evolved into worse shit after I left into the Marine Corps. So I cut all those people out the moment I joined the Marine Corps. I put a lot of thought into joining the Marine Corps. So I went down to, this is an interesting little story, but I went down to the recruiter and I was typical insecure kid. I look back at it like this insecure, like guy trying to, fight all the time and trying to, always trying to hook up with different girls and stuff. And I seen it as like, I was just an insecure kid trying to prove myself. And now that I'm older, I see that as weakness. But my buddy was going to join the Air Force, and the Marine guy comes out and he starts talking shit to me about, girls and drinking and fighting and all that stuff, right? He's like talking my 17-year-old wannabe tough guy lingo. And we had a competition who could do more pull-ups. And then he brings me in there and he starts talking about MEPS and all this stuff. And and I was like, what's MEPS? And he's like, oh, it's a physical. And I was like, I could probably use that, free physical. So went up there and did that. And it was like a day or two later. I told the guy too, is they had a delayed entry program, right? And, I told the guy, I said, put me 11 months out. And if I change my mind, I'll smoke a bowl, and then it was like a day later, this dude calls me and he's like, hey, I got a spot. You want to go? And I'm living with these guys in this trailer. And I was like, hey, you guys can have my shit. Fuck it. I'm going to go be a Marine. And that's as much thought as I put into it.
Wow. Wow. So how long were you in the Marines?
Just 4. I got right into a special unit, First Force Reconnaissance Company. And that in itself, that's where I learned, like, that's how I was surrounded by warriors, like true, like selfless, disciplined. I've never, like, that's what raised my bar. I was just a dumb idiot kid before that. And I was fortunate enough. So I've always kind of picked the harder road. And I got quite a few examples of that, and I'd probably go too far. There's probably don't have enough time. But yeah, so I joined the Marine Corps, and you think that everybody in the Marines is going to be Ivan Drago. That's what I thought. They're all going to be these specimens. Go to boot camp and I do well, and then I go to a couple other schools and I do well, and then I got an opportunity. I was in 29 Palms. I got an opportunity to recruit, and so Force Recon. So now you got MARSOC has been brought, but back then it used to be Recon Battalion and Force Recon, and there was a period of time where you had to be a sergeant or above to go to Force Recon. So it wasn't like SEALs where you can get in right out of boot camp, and that kind of changed right about the time that I was in, and this is 2000, and so I came with 29 Palms. They showed a video, guys jumping, diving, all the cool stuff, recruiting video, and then they said, if you're interested, come sign this paper. And so I competed with, after hours PT, I competed with, and this isn't even step 1. It doesn't even really count, but I competed with a bunch of guys up there to get a set of orders to go to Force Recon. And I ended up being the only guy out of that group that went. So, and then once again, I thought when I showed, I thought these guys were I didn't even know what Force Recon was. There wasn't all the movies. There wasn't all the, the information out there that's out there now, right? I didn't even know how to use the internet back then. So I never had a cell phone until I was like 25. So I think I'm going to show up and they're just going to kill me, and I show up and 3 days of checking in, nobody talks to you. And they don't really want you there too. There's kind of a hierarchy. I mean, these guys, they put it in there. And then you're surrounded by like modern day Spartans. I mean, these guys are warriors, and no matter what you're good at, and that's the thing, like, I think I always saw there's like two types of people in the world. There's like people who like to be the big fish in the small pond. And then there's people that want to be surrounded by those that are better than they are. And that is the ultimate environment, like in every way. Shoot better, jump better. I mean, and I've learned too to love, and being a Seattle firefighter now, you get this too, but I call it the unassuming type. You got a lot of people that are real flashy, in the world that are constantly trying to get everybody to look at them, and they're always telling their resume. And then you have these people that are completely unassuming that you would just never guess, So I get the Force Recon, I pass the indoc, I go through the school phase, BRC, jump dive, SEER, weapons and tactics, all these things. I get picked up and I get put on the dive team. The awesome team leader. He's kind of a personality, kind of gruff, but tactically as sound as he could be. And then I just, try to do the best I can, trying to keep up and be a quality member of my team. Did one tour, came back. I'm not going to get into any of that. And a lot of guys have done way more than me, way more sacrifice. I'm very, very small scale on that, and sometimes, a lot of times, if I wouldn't have bred, I think I would have went back in, because like I've always missed it a lot. But I came back, I trained a RIP platoon, and then I wrote a pro con list, and I can go way more into I could probably spend a whole podcast talking about the military, but wrote a pro con list, and decided that I would get out and I was going to fuck off a year. Like, quite honestly, I picked up sergeant. I was right about 19 and picked up sergeant, jump dive, recon, marine. And then, did my one tour and all that. And then I was going to get out a year, fuck off, punch nails or something, and then go back in. Then I met my boys' mom and started playing house and fell in love. And once you get those fillers, got her pregnant, then I started chasing money. I did explosives for better part of the Roughneck for 2 years, did explosives for 11 years. And then I think I was 33, and I always wanted to be a firefighter, right? Because there's something about, I think I'm built to serve. I think that's kind of in my DNA, wearing a uniform. And I like stakes too, like training for something. I want to train for something that's, there's risk involved, right? And there's also, like, you can make a difference. So when I was 33, it was a big sacrifice, but kind of fast forward through some shit here. I wanted to be a firefighter. I knew all these people that tried to being a firefighter is a really hard job to get into, right? You hear about guys that are like, they'll work for an ambulance company for 5 years, they volunteer for 5-10 years, they test for all these departments and they can't get in. So it really is. And they even say after, I got hired, it's like, you guys won the lottery, because we tested with like 8,000 people, versus 8,000 people, and to get in. I mean, and I work with the highest caliber people now. I mean, we got guys that are former NFL players, former pro baseball players, doctors, like pilots, guys that are high level mountaineers. Like, I am like, once again, I'm surrounded by those that are better than me. Always trying to up my game. So that was a big sacrifice. So I saved for 2 years. I was putting my wife through college at the time. I'm divorced now. I was putting my wife through college, and I can go into that too. And I saved for 2 years, and we had this whole game plan where she was going to get done with college, and then I was going to come home, and then I was going to full-time pursue this, right, because of the whole expenditure and having 2 kids and all that other stuff. And so I saved for 2 years, but then she called it. I always said if she ever told me it's time to come home, I would come home, right, because there's no point in chasing money when your wife doesn't want you gone. So I came home early, which put a lot of financial strain. And so in order to try to pull it off, I worked carpentry. So I was considered a general engineer. So the highest level you can get with the explosive job, kind of worked my way up to mastery on that. And so then I went to apprentice carpenter, first period carpenter for the, you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to the first period carpenter, and I've had humble pie many times in my life. Maybe I'll go into some of that too. But yeah, first period carpenter, and then worked 6 shifts a month at a volunteer station, did EMT in a fire academy, then tested for Seattle because that's the only place I wanted to work. And I was going to go all in on one test. did that test. At the end of that year, I ran out of money, but that's when my wife, I think the years being away really, it took a strain on our relationship. Excuse me. Cause I was basically gone the majority of our relationship. So ran out of money. And I'll get into that a little bit too, because I mean, some of this stuff is to help, to give people, not just my story, but probably some little nuggets people could apply to their lives. That was probably my lowest I've ever been, and I think life, the contrast in life, right? If you do something really, you go on a 10-day patrol in the Marine Corps and you're rationing water and it's in the desert and you got 160 pounds in your back, and then you come back and you drink a gallon of water, right? You don't have to ration water. You can just have a gallon of water. You're happier than the richest guy on the planet, right? Because contrast, like you put yourself through some suck. And the same thing with life, as far as, the hardest things are the emotional ones, right? So the divorce almost broke me. I worked so hard and I tried so hard to be a good husband with a little bit of time. And I felt like I had to be perfect because I was gone so much. So I'd have to be home for a week, that I put so much into that when and I was fearful for a long period of time about it falling apart. And when it finally did, and the thought of somebody else like raising my kids, it hit me hard. And I actually, and it's not like me, but I had like a 2-month stint where on the tail end of that, and I wasn't working before I went back to my old job, where I drank, like I self-medicated with alcohol. And and I've been to my lowest the same as I've tasted inner peace, and I could talk about both those things and those contrasts, and I remember mindsets, so I know what those periods of time were like. But there's so much to be gained from the lower periods of life too. There's so many lessons. Like the more the struggle, the more the lessons, almost every time. So I came up with this thing that's like, and I probably stole some shit from the internet or whatever, but it was like the 6-phase meditation, and it altered me. So at that time, I got all my testing done. I did the carpentry thing a little over a year. I ran out of money because I was supplementing our expenditure with my savings. And that 2-month I wrote this 6-phase meditation. And literally I wrote it out one night and I set it next to my bed, because in the next morning I did my 6-phase meditation, and I finally like hit that switch, like I'm not going to let anything break me, and I think psychological strength is more important than anything. The 6-phase meditation, if I went into that a little bit, it's really easy. So you wake up and you basically set your mind right for the day. That's all you're doing. So first thing, right when you wake up, is you think about all the people you care about and all the people that care about you, because that's what matters most. That is 100% what matters most. The second thing is forgiveness. There's people that have wronged me, and there's things that I've done that I'm not proud of. And every human being has this, every single person. And when you first dig into this, right, you got this laundry list of shit. You got all kinds of shit you've been thinking about. Things that happened to you long ago, things you hold on to, grudges, so on and so forth. The shame you have. Maybe you did this when you were an idiot when you were 17, or you're an idiot when you were 15. When you do it more and more, you get to that point where, you're forgiving yourself for something from yesterday, maybe, Third is you think about 3 things you're grateful for who you are, like your work life, your personal life, and how you were created. Now, how are you created, things like that. And I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, because, God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you call your God, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in earth, whether you don't believe in anything, whether you believe in yourself, the power beyond yourself, that's huge for me. That is huge. And I'm just going to, it's a little side note, but every single night, I'm not a submissive person in any way, but every single night I get into a submissive position, which means on my hands and knees. I can't do it laying on my side. I feel like it's disrespectful, because I'm so grateful for this life. And I say, thank you, God, for keeping me and my family safe. I don't ask for shit ever. Never ask for shit. I think it's like a punch card. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to use it when I need it, when I really, really need it. But I'm thankful. And somehow, some way I'm here. And some people don't believe, and that's up to them. That's fine. But I think like for us to have this conversation right now, like trillions of events had to occur in a certain sequential order for my kids to be born. trillions of events had to occur. The amount of oxygen in the air, it has to be 21%. If it's 23%, everything's going to burn. It's 19%, we're not going to breathe, right? It's just it's a miracle that the dominoes don't come falling down every day. Yeah. So 3 things you're grateful for in your personal life, 3 things you're grateful for in your work life, and 3 things you're grateful for how you were created. Another thing with that, with like how you create it. So people are constantly comparing themselves to others, right? And I've noticed too, humans only negatively judge other human beings based on what they have. If they're rich, they'll judge people that are poor. If they're in great shape, they'll judge people that are out of shape. You know, they have a nice car, they'll judge somebody's shitty car, right? And it doesn't make any sense because humans are apples and oranges. I could be like, maybe I'm the most physically fit guy on the planet. And maybe some guy's 4 foot tall and 300 pounds, but he plays a guitar like a god. Who's better? Nobody's better, right? But everybody, it's this sense of inadequacy that we need to try to find ways to one up each other. But we all have something to contribute. Phase 4, we're still on the 6-phase meditation, right? Trying to stay on point here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Number 4.
I'm gonna take out my dip. This is my that's my one vice. I've been doing it since I was 12. Phase 4 is people underestimate or they overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, but they usually underestimate in 3 years. And really, like, kind of 3 years is what it took me to, reach my. This is literally I do my dream job. Like, I have my dream job. I would rather be a Seattle firefighter than an NFL player. That's me personal. Each their own, but that to me personal. And I literally landed my dream job at 35 years old with no money in the bank. You know what I mean? Like, I'm somehow, some way I made it happen. Like, anything is possible. And if you look at like me and Will's story, like I make the joke, I come from a long line of shitheads, and it's a joke, but it's like, but the example I'm setting for my children, like we're taking a branch of a brand new tree, and this tree is it's gonna be a big, strong, powerful tree. It's gonna be a redwood. You know what I mean? My kids are gonna be, they're gonna be exemplary human beings. I truly believe they're gonna be better men than me, and they're already on their way. So it doesn't matter where you come from. Or as her mom used to say, show them where you come from. Phase 5 is, so every day you got to do shit. Like, you got to go to work, or you got to, you got to feed your kids, you got to do whatever. It's 3 things outside of that, right? No matter what your schedule is, it's whether it's reading a book or writing in a journal or doing something else. It's 3 things that are working out. It's 3 things outside of that. It's going to make you closer to your goals. It's moving the needle is what it's doing. Will talks a lot about this, and I've watched him talk about that, where it's, daily habits, daily rituals. Make it to where it's not self-discipline, make it to where it's not willpower. You do it every day. And so then it becomes, each day you're moving forward, you're becoming a better version of yourself. And then phase 6 is basically whatever you believe in, God, Allah, Yahweh, Bob, Mother Earth, yourself, that you have faith, that faith, all these things will come true. I could dig into faith a little bit too. It's like fear and faith. I hate fear. And they, like the Marine Corps, they talk about the 4 levels of awareness, white, yellow, orange, and red. White's like la la land. It's like most people are in la la land. Yellow's like, it's kind of like driving, right? Potential for an accident, but it's probably not going to happen. Orange, that's like you're in a bad neighborhood. You're the minority walking down the alley, right? And level red is someone just pulled a gun out of the alley and they just put it to your head, right? So, and it takes 4 seconds to go level white to level red. That's why you always kind of want to be aware without being afraid. But there's different types of fear, and the fear I can't stand is projected fear. Like there's a lot going on in the world right now today. I definitely don't want to talk about COVID because there's plenty of people getting paid a lot of money to talk about it. But there's all this projected fear of what could happen tomorrow. And I always think about, it's like when you're in the airplane and you take off out of a major city and you look down and you see all the geometry, and you can look down, like you're flying on Minneapolis, St. Paul, or SeaTac or whatever. There's just thousands and thousands of cars. You can probably look down on 1 million people. And at some point it makes you feel insignificant, right? Like you can feel two ways about it, right? You can feel insignificant, like I'm like one cell of a giant organism. But that should also like be I don't know the word, but like it's free, right? Like all those people, they're all worried about something. They're all like, or they're worried about what somebody thinks of them or what happened today. And I think any projected future fears, and there's one thing to be aware. There's another thing to like worry about tomorrow. And it's like, so what's a good life, right? So it's like, I had someone asked before, they said, Matt, what do you think would be, what's the purpose of life? And I thought long and hard about that. And I can only really come up with two things. And and I always think the simple answer is usually the right answer, like what is every industry in the world? Every industry, there's one word: convenience. It's to make people's lives easier. And sometimes that's not actually the best thing. People's lives would actually be better if it was harder, but they don't realize that. I could go into that too. Why is most people in prison? Ego, right? There's usually a one-word answer for everything. So purpose of life. And the only thing I come up with is like, I go through all these periods of life. And, in 2009, I was living in a van. Like 2009, living in a van. I lost everything at that point and then rebuilt from there, and that's a whole separate story. But I learned so many lessons. That's the first time in my life I figured out what inner peace is. Inner peace is remarkable. I've tasted the other side of life, the apathy, the wanting to take a long walk and not come back. I've tasted that, but I've also tasted inner peace. And when you taste inner peace, you're absolutely fearless. You're fearless. Your mind is a tool. A primary, secondary, tertiary means the solution. That's it. There's no you're not controlled by external forces. You have ultimate control of yourself. So I think the two purposes of life are, one of the intangible lessons that we learn. And the only way we can learn those lessons is about learning about ourselves. And we have to experience things. All that life has to offer: pain, suffering, but also the joy, love, true love. People talk about love all the time. And there's all these people that got all these nightmare divorce scenarios. I have an excellent relationship with my ex-wife. Excellent. I put her through college after we got divorced. I got her credit up because she was relying on me financially, from a 550 to a 720. I just helped her, got her set up with a mortgage broker and a realtor, and she's about to purchase her first home on her own. And the thing about love is, like, there's no opposite. Like, I love my ex-wife, whether she loves me, whether she likes me, whether she marries a billionaire, whether she becomes a crack whore. I will always love her. I don't love her based on her feelings for me or what I can get from her. And I don't think people get that a lot of times. People think they love someone based on what they can do for them, even if it's an emotional base. That's not real love. Love is, I'll do anything for you, even if you'll do nothing for me. So as far as the two lessons of life, the purposes of being here, is I think it really comes down to is learning those lessons in those moments, learning about, I'm not more money. I've made really good money. When I left my previous job, I would have made $350,000 that year. I made it to the tip of the spear. I'm now out of all that money to make a firefighter job. I'm not more money. I'm not less with less money. I'm always just Matt. I'm just Matt.
That's awesome.
The second thing is moments. And I learned this because I'd say in my 20s, I was a stress monkey. And, I'd be with my one son, and then I got my other son, Liam, called Bam Bam Destroyer. That's his Viking name. But I'd be with them, but I wasn't with them. Take them to the lake, take them somewhere, but my mind is elsewhere. And I think about that. Like, if you had a lot of, like, you could be super successful. Let's say I'm singular focused. I'm going to be the best at this. Or maybe I'm one of those really greedy fucks that it's like, I need more, right? So, and I'm not impressed by people that have enormous amounts of money. That does not impress me. What impressed me are people who are selfless, or, the World War II generation type, where they're extremely resourceful. Their car breaks down, they figure out how to fix it. They got a leak in their roof, they fix it. They got an electrical problem, they figure out how to fix it. That's impressive. The sacrificial, hardworking family man, the sacrificial, hardworking mother, that's impressive. Those who need more and more and more, that doesn't impress me. If you have $100 billion, why do you need more? What are you overcompensating for? I don't understand this. And also too, I think that those who try to control others, I think lack control themselves. It's a compensation. It's a weakness. If I need to try to control you, which I have actually no power over you, and if I'm strong, you have no power over me. The no free rent policy, I won't let you occupy my mind unless I choose to give you that space, which means you can never offend me because I own the space in my mind. You don't own the space in my mind. I'm getting off tangent here a little bit.
So Matt, let me stop you. Will, I totally get why you felt like you read 3 books. Geez, I'm on page 9 of our of notes. Matt, I've got to disrupt you for just a second, because from a societal standpoint, I think many people seek comfort as a goal, and therefore all the decisions they make are anti-warrior, it seems, because I just want to be comfortable. You, through your resourcefulness and the pathways that you've taken, have completely blown comfort out of the water. And I think that you've discovered the answer to growth, which is I don't want to call it a warrior mentality. That's too simple a word, but you've discovered growth. And that, to me, is where your inner peace has come from, because that's what we're designed to do. Is that fair?
Well, put it this way, right? So like, let's say you're super rich and you go out to eat all the time, right? You go out to eat and you go to fancy restaurants every day. And those type of people are more inclined to be like, oh, this isn't cooked correctly, or wham, right? It's like, it's not good enough for them. And they're always complaining. But let's say you make every meal. Just that simple, right? You're going to have a greater appreciation for your food, and it's going to taste better. Let's say you take it further and you grow and you hunt and you bring that food home and you butcher it, and you have now even a greater, so in your appreciation, your food will taste better than the person who gets it served to them every day. But they don't understand that. They don't get that. It has to be earned.
Well, and I see that as well in your story when you talk about experiencing the lowest of low as well as the highest joy, that you have to have the context of those two in order to enjoy the journey in between, or to at least respect the journey in between, because that's growth, right? So I hear it all the time in people who are addicts or even depressed, that they had to go to the bottom in order for their transformation to begin. They had to go there, to the absolute bottom of their existence, where they were relegated to just 2 choices. Either I'm going to die right now in this moment, or I'm choosing to live. And if it weren't for that moment, they would never have made the choice.
Yeah, Jack Chaplin says freedom's like nothing left to lose, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Wow. You've talked about so many different compass directions. I'm not sure where to go other than.
So I got a question, Matt. Like you mentioned, a time in your life where you gained inner peace, and that was almost like the best feeling. And it kind of seems like that's a goal of so many of, all of us, is to gain that inner peace. And so many of us kind of search for the inner peace in the comfort. And it seems like kind of what you're explaining and what I've learned from you is that real inner peace is being able to strengthen yourself and to be in control over yourself to overcome almost your external situation. But for my question can
I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
First thing's accountability. It's accountability to yourself. So there's like 3 I break down, there's 3 levels of discipline. You got physical discipline, emotional discipline, and mental discipline. Now some people are like extremely physically disciplined, but they have like war zone in their brain, right? Physical discipline is the act of doing. Mental discipline is the act of focusing. That's why I got rid of my social media, because I couldn't focus, because I was, all of a sudden it was like, I'm paying attention to this thing.
Mhm.
And emotional discipline is the act of controlling. Like, I had you read that book, Power versus Force, right?
Yeah.
You remember that? That was like one of the keys to the door, to the hallway, to open up like your mind.
Yeah. That
right?
book is really what opened it up at all for me to start realizing, like, holy cow,
But it gives
it's
you
not all
that
about myself.
there's different levels to this thing, right?
Yeah.
And of course you want to level up, right? And we all know what it's like to feel shitty. So you want to feel good, and you want to feel good more often than not. You know, I took an ice bath this morning, and I'm in the sun, and the sun feels really good on me because I sat in a 15-minute ice bath, calming my mind. It's contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
But to find inner peace, first thing is you have to learn that you are ultimately responsible for you and how you feel. But then it's not selfish to try to become the best version of yourself, because we're all on a team. We all have people that rely on us. You could be a good friend, you could be a shitty friend. You could be a good father, you could be a shitty father. You could be a great father, you could be a great friend. And just like big pictures of life, like not to go too far into it, but I said living in the moment and embracing the moment. So one is learning the lessons. So I don't know if people caught this. One is learning the lessons. Everything in life is training. If you extract the lessons from previous experiences, even if they were negative experiences, you now have those tools to take with you to the next set of experiences. You get that?
Yeah. I
Right?
love that, and that's something I learned from you as well, is like you said, every day is training. You know what I mean? Like every situation is training to be a better version of yourself for tomorrow,
Like I have two boys, right? And they go to school, and kids can be assholes at school, right? And I tell Roman, you might as well get good at dealing with assholes, because you're going to deal with them the rest of your life. It's practice. It's training, right?
Yeah.
It's
It
training.
doesn't change when you get older.
It doesn't change, right? Don't give them power over you. No free rent policy. I will not let others occupy my mind unless I choose to give them that space. You cannot offend me.
And that's just being, secure and confident within your own self. It seems like a lot of people who give into the external situations seem to be focusing more on external instead of internal, when really, the answer and everything we seek is already within us, that we have to strengthen, instead of worrying about that outside circumstance that we can't control, we have to put that same energy and focus into ourselves, and how can we improve ourselves to become bigger than the problem being bigger than us.
So Matt, let me ask you this. I have heard it said that we are a product of our experiences. So I've heard it said that way. And then I also heard somebody else discount that statement and say, no, it's evaluated experiences that make us who we are. So I think those people that look at those aspects of their life that have been impactful to them, not just the experience of going through it, but thinking into and becoming self-aware of how can I be better because of that, rather than be a victim to it. When did you become self-aware enough to put that evaluation, that level of perspective in place?
So I ran into this kid, Josh, I knew, and he didn't turn out too well. And he was talking about, he brought up when he's like, man, last time I saw you, it was when I was like a kid, right? Like 12 years old. And he says, you remember, because my face was fucked up because I got whooped on home. And he says, you remember what you said? I don't remember saying this to him, but he said it. He goes, remember what you said to me? And I said, no. And he's telling me this story about, he was asking me, I guess, if I was going to like tell cops or tell the school, right, about getting whooped on at home, And I told him that, and this is his words, but he said, I told him that they're training me. They're only making me stronger. And so and you say like your product of your environment and your perception of that environment. I agree with that, but I think there's also something I would call the observer or the soul. And I believe in this. And so you have kind of two parts. You have, and humans are weird, right? Like we're at the same time you're trying to fit in, you're also trying to be an individual. That's like in every separate group, right? They're trying to separate themselves and look different or act different or feel special, but at the same time they want to fit in, which doesn't really make sense. It's kind of paradoxical. It's kind of an oxymoron, whatever. But there's this part of you, the soul. And the soul, as I say, is like like judgment, right? The 4-year-old in the sandbox. If we took a bunch of 4-year-olds from every culture on the planet, every single culture, right? Every different religion, every different background, every different look, physical look, and we put them in a sandbox, they're not going to judge each other. The 4-year-old in the sandbox, that part of you that's quiet, the soul, the observer, it's quiet though. It's not like your ego. Your ego's loud. Your observer, the soul of you, is quiet. And there's a part of you that has been the same your whole life. It hasn't. It's the purest parts of you. It's the non-judging part. That's the soul. And that, when tapped into and when listened to that voice, I think you find more truth, but you also find more peace. So you have these experiences, and it's kind of like, you don't want to say like, oh, I had a bad relationship, so I'll never have a relationship again. Or, these ultimatums. That's not what I mean by, I look back at a period of time and I try to extract the lessons from it. What I mean is my mindset during that time. And if I would go back and I was just to write out, let's say a really bad period of time, right? And I write out, what could I control? What could I have done differently? Those are the things that I can apply now if something similar comes up. But I also think in life too, because I think that one of the purposes of life, just like I say, is living in the moment and embracing the moment. And the other part is learning the lessons.
Yeah, that's the evaluated experience. Yeah, clearly, I think we have a lot of people in the hamster wheel repeating the same, wanting a different outcome, but repeating the same behaviors.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is people, they don't, sometimes life gives you a different scenario because you never actually learned the lesson.
There you go.
Yeah. And it just keeps coming back until you end up evolving from learning from it, or that consequence keeps getting more and more. And I've experienced so much of that in my own life, that's for sure.
Yeah. Matt, I don't know if you've ever read a book called The 4 Agreements or The Mastery of Love by Paulo Coelho, but
I read The 4 Agreements.
Yeah, so the Toltec the Toltecs and the Toltec wisdom that he's referring to talks about what you were referring to earlier of what happens in life as the dream of the planet. None of that is real, that there is, like you said, the soul of the person behind there that we're not paying attention to, that is actually the most important. And that level of awareness where you can discern the difference between the dream of the planet that we're all caught up in and then our authentic selves, that's life's journey right there.
Yeah. And I think a huge key to this whole journey is being able to tap in and connect with our authentic self, to connect with our 4-year-old non-ego spirit, as Matt so to speak. And like, I know my way for that has been sport and meditation, and just constantly pushing myself out of the comfort zone to be the observer and to see who I am when times get difficult. That's the times where I feel like we can really learn our best lessons, as he was saying, of being able to sit and observe when things are difficult, when things are really tough, if that's screaming kids or losing your job or someone's sick, like that's a time where we can sit back and just be the observer. And that's when we're going to learn those, and be able to reflect and get those, lessons by shutting our ego up and just kind of seeing what we can control and what is under our control and what is just this external of how we're perceiving it.
Absolutely. So I see a lot of similarities between you two gentlemen. I know y'all have come back together, but y'all seem to be, I'm from the South, sorry about that. You guys clearly are now on a very similar trajectory of growth and development. Will, what is it about Matt's journey that pushed you into maybe going on this journey of growth and development, where you're constantly talking about being better with nutrition, better with movement, solving pain
I
problems?
think I could answer that for him. I think it's
Let's hear it.
I think it's pretty simple. I think all I did to help him was I got him to quit looking outward and start looking inward.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
You know, and like his perspective is probably spot on, you know, just from an outside perspective, because that's exactly what it was. To where when I first, you know, I don't want to say first met him, but we didn't speak for like 14 years. So I think I was maybe 10 last time I seen him as a kid. And then I could
throw him on my shoulders. I took you to the mall. I had you on my shoulders, and I was telling you what to say to all the girls.
Yeah, that was the first lesson you taught me of how to talk to girls. but yeah, so we didn't talk for like 14 years. And then, you know, just going and seeing how he lives, it got me really to, you know, reflect on myself, because this was at a time, I'm sure Matt can remember, where I thought I was a full-blown sociopath because I couldn't find any, you know, I couldn't care about anything but myself, you know, like that's the only thing that, you know, I didn't have any compassion for other people. I didn't really think about other people, as opposed to just comparing myself and trying to be better than them. And then when I met Matt, I got to see like I have to look inward to better myself. And then to see an example of somebody who came from shit that I know came from even a situation worse than I am, that seeing how he took care of his family, how he took care of his kids, how he was completely selfless in his family to taking care of his wife. And like, I remember I just looked up and I seen him doing the dishes, and nobody asked him to do the dishes, you know. And this is a specific experience that I just remember, when everyone was done eating and we're all relaxing on the couch, and his wife was on the couch and his kids were on the couch. I'm on the couch. I look up and he's just selflessly doing the dishes, you know, instead of enjoying this time of comfort of, you know, of just relaxing and basking in our full bellies. He's up taking care of the family that really does nothing for him, because I'm sure if he didn't do it, you know, the next day his wife would do it, you know. But he took that pressure off his family. He took that pressure off his wife. And to make that selfless act, it was, you know, that was huge for me to see, like, look, he came from a situation worse than me. And he's, you know, like, because I think our childhood made it so I had to take care of myself, you know, and myself was the most important thing at that point. Because if I didn't take care of myself, I wouldn't have anything else. I wouldn't have a life. So when I had to take care of myself, I lost, you know, the perspective and the benefits of really caring for other people. And then as I seen him I know that he grew out of that mindset of he took care of himself, and now he's past that and able to take care of his family and to take care of, you know, the people around him, I think was huge. And then I was able to, like he said, just reflect on myself, realizing that, you know, all the energy I spend thinking about what other people think about me, and to think about what other people are doing and these external, you know, situations, were just holding me back from, you know, improving myself and to strengthening myself and to becoming my best self, to be able to be my best in every situation and to whatever team that I'm on. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a perfect answer. Wow. Matt, anything you want to add to that?
Not really, actually. I think that's pretty good.
Way to go, Will. You have graduated from the school of Matt. That's awesome.
Yes.
So Matt, you clearly have the job of your dreams. You're building your kids to their highest value contribution. What's on the radar for you? What does growth look like for you now, and being the best version of you?
I really want to do a 500 back squat and a 5-minute mile on the same day. That's a big goal. Side goal. Really just I like simplicity. So I just want to get my house in order. You know, I got a house that needs a lot of work, and I really just want to be absolutely the best firefighter I can. That means like no stone unturned, no school like that I don't go to, nothing that I don't study, and just really like the gradient of being a good firefighter is you show up and you work with a crew and they're happy to have you there. Like if you work with anybody and they're like, oh shit, you know, we got Matt today, we're covered. You know, that right there is that's worth more than anything. You know, as far as my kids, that's my number one. Is I really, if they turn out to be good men that can think for themselves, right? And I'm my oldest, you know, little Bam Bam, he's a brute. I mean, he's a little warrior. And Roman is too, but Roman's hitting, you know, he's older, he's 13, and he's really starting to think for himself. And I find that super impressive. He can see through bullshit, which is huge because there's a lot of authoritarian figures in the world that aren't good leaders, right? And not everything that comes out of their mouth is true, and a lot of it is self-serving. And I'm not a fan of that type of behavior, quite honestly. Like I think about if I was to give you a third purpose of life, I would call it, it's one word for me, and it's the word legacy. And I'm fully aware that someday I'm going to die. I'm not afraid of it. I really am not. It's a passing of time. I do believe in a power beyond myself. I don't understand it. There's more I don't know than I'll ever know. And that's another thing is I think no human being has anything really figured out, but whoever sells it the best to the most amount of people, everybody buys into it. That's why I don't understand why, you know, there's religious conflict or things like that, because everybody's just trying to figure it out on their own. It's all an interpretation. None of us, not a single one of us actually know anything. But as far as legacy, you know, that whole saying, you know, a man dies twice, right? Or a woman too, but once when they die, and the second when someone says their name for the last time. And I hope that everybody that's interacted with me, just like if you were to call up someone I worked with 10 years ago, and there's, you know, and they were to say, hey, you remember Matt? And they're going to say, man, that guy was a good guy. He always looked out for us. He always did his best. You know, he took care of his people. He'd do anything for you, like that kind of stuff, you know. That's what I want my legacy to be, is that, you know, he was a selfless, hardworking guy that would always do the right thing. And doing the right thing is not like, there's some things that are black and white, and there's some things that are gray, right? But I think we all know, like you brought up the azimuth, the compass, and I got a bunch of analogies for that, you know, land navigation, right? You use a compass. Even like, you know, diving a Mark 25 Uba, you got your tack board, which is basically a compass, and that's so you can end up, you know, no bubbles. It's a closed circuit dive rig, so there's no bubbles. But you know, you point your azimuth, right? And sometimes you get off path, and you got to reshoot an azimuth so that you're going where you need to go. But the legacy is huge. I could write a book on the word legacy. I have a lot of thoughts by it, but it's not like, oh, that guy had the most stuff, right? Or maybe I'm singular focused on monetary possession, or, you know, or inflating my ego, right? Like, oh, no, I want it to be like that guy. He was selfless. He was hardworking. He's like an excellent human being. And if you are in the highest levels of yourself, you're going to raise the game of those around you. And then if you're smart, you'll surround yourself with people that are better than you are, smarter than you are, stronger than you are, all the things that you want to be. You know, the people want to be the big fish in the small pond. That's the wrong mentality. You'll never grow. Like, people need to think of themselves as a product, right? The more challenge I go through, the better product I become. The better people I surround myself with, the better product I become. I end up, it's like going through rough waters. You come out more refined. You're a better version of yourself. If you seek comfort, and you seek what's easy, if you seek what strokes your ego, which is going to be what, you know, I'm going to surround myself with people, you know, that can do what I want to be good at better than they can. I'm not going to grow. Yeah. But I might get some ego strokes.
So I got a quick question though, Matt, like, because I know there's so many people who, like, they weren't born in a background kind of like me and you that was just naturally uncomfortable, so for the people who were born almost in a comfortable life and they've been comfortable their whole life, and now they're getting older and they're starting to realize like, hey, that's not really the way, and they're looking to step out of their comfort zone and do that. But like, what would you recommend for the people who just aren't good at getting uncomfortable? Like they've never,
I got
do get cold when it's 72 degrees or warm when it's 78.
I got it. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to rewind, right? So I told you I went through my little down funk of my divorce, right? And then I I ended up going back to my old job, making money, saving again, going, and then getting picked up with the fire department. But in that this is where Will started pushing me when I did have the Instagram, started pushing me to put my videos out. And it's because one week I'm doing a strongman competition, and literally the next weekend I'm doing an ultra marathon, which is polar opposites. And there's things with these too. So I don't win any of these things. I'm not great at anything. Quite honestly, I'm not. And where most people fantasize about getting a podium finish, I fantasize about where the perfect race would be where you crawled through the finish line and then you went unconscious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as far as if you were to break down,
by grace.
and if you break down strength and endurance too, like if you do a strength event, it's going to force the 100% out of you, and you're going to see how actually strong you are that day. And you're only as good as you are today. And then an endurance event, which is great if it's long enough and hard enough, you're going to get to a point I call beat me with a stick. I'll break that down for you. So it's like on a military patrol or something, right? Like you're uncomfortable, right? And then you get to a point, she's about 3 days in because you haven't really got any sleep, and you got 160 pounds in your back, and you just, you're thirsty, you're hungry, all this stuff. And your brain, right? It's like fighting you. It wants to be comfortable. But then you get to this point, and it's so freeing. I call beat me with a stick because you don't give a shit anymore. Your team leader's like, hey, nope, we're extending the patrol 5 days. We got to go climb that mountain. You're like, fuck it, whatever. You'll run to, it's like being a dog, loyal, obedient, and I'll run till my heart explodes. Like you just get to that point, you don't give a shit. Beat me with a stick. And the endurance events, like I think the toughest people on the planet are these people who run these ultra marathons, these 100-mile plus races. Like to me, they're because every step fucking
they got
hurts.
up here mastered. That's for sure.
Every step after a certain point hurts. Every single step, and they keep going. And they're only doing it versus themselves. They ain't getting the big money out of it. They ain't getting nothing. Nobody's like, oh, yay, you're fucking awesome. It's very, very little recognition, and they're versus themselves, and they're fighting their own demons. They're in their own battle. They're in their own war, and it's one step at a time. That's why I think they're probably the toughest people. But the endurance event, if it's hard enough and long enough, and you push it, right, you get to that point, you get to taste that beat me with the stick thing, where it's free. You don't care about comfort anymore.
Yeah, but how do you win that war inside your head to get to that beat me with a stick?
You just need a toughness reset. I call them toughness resets.
What's that?
You do something that's really tough for an extended period of time, and you get a toughness reset.
Yeah.
Cold
bath is one of the easiest ways, right?
Oh, easy, and it's a controlled environment, right?
Yeah.
So if it's your first time, maybe you get a spotter. Once you get to uncontrolled shivering, it's time to get out. You start jackhammering, it's time to get out, right? Yeah. The other day I split up. We got this big old fucking tree, like big tree, and so I grabbed my axe, and I cut it. It's late. We already fell it, right? So it's laying on the ground like this. I can walk over there and show you. But I grabbed my axe. I actually wanted to lay down and take a nap, and I laid down. Then I called myself a pussy because I was like, I need to work out, and I wanted to do this, and it was in my head, but I was trying to take the easy way out. So I told my boys, get your shoes on, and they each got their own axe. I grabbed my axe, and I said, once I start hitting, I can't stop hitting, because I was feeling like I was getting soft. I don't want to be cookie dough, So I go out there and I start hitting. And once I start hitting, I can't stop. So an hour and a half later, my hands were completely bleeding because I took all the skin off my hands because I didn't bring gloves. But I got through it. And it's a toughness reset. It's a short one, hour and a half, but That's all you need is a toughness reset. Go be cold,
Do
wet,
something
tired,
that's
hungry.
really, really hard to you, and just dive in head first with no turning back.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Another thing too is it's all comparative, right? If you just go make yourself if you take a cold shower 6 days a week and cold water is really hard for you, you're going to really appreciate the one warm one you take.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's pretty simple. Like, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of simplicity, Matt, a lot of what you talk about reminds me of Stoicism. You come across very stoic to me, not knowing you. I mean, you're strong as hell, courageous, very wise. So do you practice or study Stoicism at all?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I had a guy that I was talking my philosophies to, and he told me I was a Stoic, so I started looking into it. We can give a little breakdown for people what Stoicism is. Basically, it's basing everything on the virtues, the ethos. You do what you ought to do in accordance with nature or with your nature. So, and this is different levels of this thing, but it's not something that's a club or organization. And I think more people are becoming aware of it than they used to be. But one is not having anxiety over what I can't control, worrying about what I can control, and being accountable for myself, and then having kind of a defined set of values of how I live my life, right? And religions do this too, and they're in different ways. So, for instance, if if me and Will work the same job, but Will's been there for 10 years and I've been there for 15 minutes, and Will knows the job better than I do, and he's better at the job than I am, and he's much more knowledgeable, but I played football with the guy who's our boss, and we're about to get a raise or promotion, and he tries to offer it to me because I'm his buddy. If I was a Stoic, I wouldn't accept the raise because that's not the honorable thing to do. That's a good example of what it is to be Stoic. I also am not going to have anxiety or what I can't control. It's kind of like you're born on one side of a room, you die on the other side of that room, and you can fill the room with whatever you want. If you're a Stoic, your pursuit is virtue. It's to do what you ought to do in accordance with nature. And so we have to take our nature, right? I, work in Seattle, I-5's here. It's a lot of traffic, right? And people are assholes. So like a good analogy to that too is if I'm driving and people are they're driving like assholes, right? They're riding your ass, they're trying to cut you off and all these things. If I get emotionally upset over that, over something I can't control, but that's the nature of the environment, right? You have to be one with your nature. It's in our nature to work. Everybody should work. Everybody should contribute to the tribe. Our tribe is civilization, but everybody should contribute at whatever level they can contribute. That's being one with nature. Man should work. Being one with nature. I'm a firefighter. I'm going to go on scenes. There's all kinds of things that happen on scenes. I should be expectant for people to be emotional on scene. I should be expected of seeing trauma. I should be expected of seeing car accidents. I should be expected of seeing, these things that are non-desirable. There are things I will see that are undesirable, but it's the nature of my work. So I should be okay and one within my nature. And I think that's huge. Temperance, wisdom, morality, and courage. Those are 4 big virtues. And temperance is like, if you drink, it's moderation. You do things. You have control of yourself. You have control of your bearing. And a lot of this stuff even goes into like the Marine Corps 14 leadership traits. There's a lot of crossovers. And they're just words unless people really understand them. It's like sometimes something, you truly know it to your core. Like to me to say like, a purpose of life, or I'm not more and more money, I'm not less or less money, I'm always just Matt. And then someone could say that to me and it's just one ear out the other. Like to know something to your core is a different level, I think as far as the self-control thing, self-discipline, like that people don't realize, and there's more people talking about it, which I think is an awesome thing, but that's the superpower. That is the ultimate. If you control what you think, feel, and do, and then you have the ability to visualize yourself as you want to be, and then you can take a goal from the future and you can reverse engineer that. Regardless of what obstacles come in your way and how many lefts and rights you take, you will make that happen. If it is within possibility, you will make that happen. For sure. Because you won't be set off because of something that you can't control emotionally. You will only take care of. And people, and with that, people need to think of their energy as money. See, I think there's a lot of communication between people that's more energy based, right? And that's another thing about feeling inner peace is when you're at a level of peace, you attract all types of people and they're at ease because they know you're not judging them and they know you're not afraid of them. And so you have a different communication with people. But where am I going with this?
I mean, I think you're 100% spot on. You know, I'm actually reading a book on Stoicism now, and another awesome factor that I've noticed about Stoicism that I see in you so much is of just not really reacting. You know, like we're all gonna have those, you know, like those quick little moments of our white face of, you know, if something catastrophe happens in that moment, but it's to be able to step outside of that first initial emotion and to be able to see it in a clear perspective to like not say, oh my God, the world's ending, or, you know, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to make it, but just say, okay, this is the situation of what it is. This is what nature is. And let's just only focus on what I can, you know, think, feel, and do, and then do my best with that.
Yeah. And also too, with like energy. So if people thought of energy as money,
yeah,
right?
100 energies. Yep.
Yeah. 100 energies. You get 100 energies a day, right? So you're only going to invest in things you get returns on. And I'm not talking tangible returns. I'm not talking, right? You're going to give me free shit. I'm talking like my buddy Joe, right? You've met my buddy Joe.
Yeah.
Like I can tell Joe anything just as I can tell you. Joe will tell me when I'm fucked up. He'll tell me when he thinks I'm stupid. That's a different level of friendship. And so like if you thought of your energy as money, you invest in those people and the things that you do, like you with your habits, your daily habits and routines, right? That you're getting returns on. And you have different levels of this, right? So like, and this is, you can break it down like the chakra thing, right? And I'm not like some voodoo, whatever chakra. I don't really understand all the chakra stuff, but this is a great subcategory. Is you got your relationship to yourself, which is the most important. You got your relationship to those closest to you. And then you got your relationship to the world. Now, some people put all their energy into trying to look cool for the world. There's no returns on that investment. But if I'm the best friend you've ever had, and I'm the best brother you've ever had, I'm the best father, you know, the people that matter the absolute most to me, and I actually put conscious effort and energy into making their lives better and making them better and helping them and doing what I can for them, there's huge returns on that investment. Yeah. It's kind of like too, you know, and this goes into the gift without reward thing. It's like when you do something, the moment you share it, you take away from. If you give to charity and you don't tell anybody about it, you'll get chills down your spine. If you help somebody you're really in need and you never say a word to anybody, you get chills down your spine. But if you do it and then you're some celebrity that makes sure everybody knows that, hey, I just did this, you're not getting anything out of it, dude.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a quote in the Bible that says that, like, your reward is your reward. You know, if you do something great and then tell other people about it, that's the only reward that you're going to get. You know, but if you do something and keep it to yourself, that's when the real rewards are able to sink in.
And I was talking about visualization earlier, right? So if you know how to create, you want to reach your goals, right? If you had total control of self, if you had 100% self-discipline, I'm like 68%, right? Because I can nail everything except Copenhagen. I just like Copenhagen. I can nail everything. I can hit my workouts, my diet, you know, everything. Read a book, do this, do that. But you know, that's my best good buddy. I just like Copenhagen, you know. But and then you can visualize. So we'll talk about visualization too. Like another book I read, and this in the Marine Corps, I was subpar shooter going into the shooting package, and that's a whole separate thing. I read this book, Power of the Subconscious Mind, and just a little nugget for everybody here is
one of the first books you've given me.
Yeah, a little nugget is simply the point between being awake and being asleep, you can hit your theta brainwave, your theta brainwaves, and in that you can visualize yourself doing something. And if you have no self-doubt and you can visualize yourself doing it perfectly, and get as many senses involved in that visualization as you can, the sights, the smells, everything, right? And you visualize perfectly, you are now bypassing your conscious mind and going right into your subconscious, making yourself believe that you can do it. If you mix that with discipline, you'll create your path, no matter where you
start. That's something that I really started doing and gained from learning about your 6-phase meditation. Honestly, is like when you first told me about that, and I still actually do a version of that today, but every night and every morning that I woke up, I took moments and I visualized where I wanted to be mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, like in every way. And then there were so many times where, because I've been doing this for like 3 years now, to where I'm like visualizing exactly the way I want my life to be and like how I'm wanting to contribute. And there's been numerous times where, close people around me are coming up to me, yo, can you believe that this is going on? And then my first reaction is like, bro, I've been here. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I mean, I've seen this in my head every night. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, I've pictured this, every single morning and every single night, even down to being able to be on this recording and to be able to connect with people all over the world. Like, this is stuff that I seen before going to bed. And then, in the next stages of those 6 phases of meditation, I'm picturing, the 3 things that I'm going to do that day, or 3 things I'm going to do the next day that's going to get me closer to actually making that happen, to moving that needle forward. And then, and even before I got into that, to set my tone of, the things that I'm grateful for, and to be able to check in with my biggest strengths, and and to be able to check into these things, and then go into the visualization, and then go into the top 3 things that's going to get me there. And then from there, going into like sitting back and like, look, I know I can do this. You know what I mean? Like, look, like this is possible. Then to stepping back and to connecting with that faith of, look, if I just keep staying on this path, like it's going to happen. And then sure enough, I'm waking up, and just like Matt is living his dream of like a Seattle firefighter, I'm waking up and I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I am exactly where I want to be. And this is far from where I see myself in my nighttime visions tonight. This is far of where I plan on going, but this is exactly where I pictured myself 3-4 years ago when I first started changing everything of, started to take into everything that Matt is telling me into consideration, and realizing that, one, it's not all about myself, to realize that it's not about how this is going to make me look, but instead of how I can contribute. And yeah, like you're
So
spot on, Matt.
Also too with that, right? Like that's the harder road. The harder road has the most rewards usually.
Yeah.
It's almost universal. Like the easy road is just to be, you're out of control, the girls, the hanging out, the undisciplined behavior, right? Right? The harder road is like, I'm going to make a Hulk shake every day. I'm going to do this kind of training. I'm going to do this meditation. I'm going to write. Like that's much harder. It's much more difficult to regiment yourself, especially when, self-discipline is way harder than discipline, when it's forced upon you. But when you have to do it yourself and you have room to do all these other things, that's what make, Stoicism, that's what made Marcus Aurelius so incredible, was he was an emperor, right? So he could drink wine, and he could have all the women and all the alcohol and all the possessions and all the things, and he chose none.
Yeah.
He chose virtue.
But it's harder, but it doesn't make you any happier, and that's from me,
right.
In my experiences of, you remember when I first came to your house, I was the most undisciplined person you've ever met. I was partying, I was drinking, I was with the women, I was doing everything bad, and I thought it was cool,
But also too, I could tell, and the truth to be told is you did not deep down feel good about yourself.
No,
and actually the shittier you felt, the more you projected the opposite. Yeah, it's just exactly. Like someone who acts tough, who's scared. It's
Exactly.
projecting that insecurities, that weakness.
And it reminds me of two differences of like an investment to where you're just selling your time, and that's what it really reminds me of, is like putting that later gratification for later. Like that's an investment for true, real, deep happiness, as opposed to like, I want this candy now, or I want this alcohol now, or I want this bad thing now. It's going to make me feel good right now. And then you're getting all those dopamine and all those hormones going off of, you're in this drug coma almost. But then afterwards, you feel bad. When you lay your head at night, you feel like shit. When you wake up in the morning, you feel like shit. And then you need more of those bad dopamine to just feel okay again.
Well, that's another thing. That's a whole subject matter too, is like people think they'll get, they think there's a hack. They think there's, even steroids or any of those things, right? They think there's some, if this is going to give me, the only advantage is hard work. The only advantage is self-discipline. The only advantage is doing things as you ought to do them and doing the things for the right reasons, having pure intentions.
Yeah.
That has the most amount of kickback, and it's solid. It's a foundation. Like you have to build the foundation of who you are.
For sure.
If you need other things outside of you to be okay with who you are, there's no foundation there. That'll come crashing down the moment you can't access something, you can't get something, or it changes, or you economically or anything else, then you're left with nothing. But if you build up the strength of who you are, the foundation of who you are and what you're capable of, then you don't need, then you're always going to bring the best, the most likely to succeed, the most likely to survive version of yourself in no matter what life throws at you.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. I think
ego is like a balloon, I think, is the best analogy. The bigger your ego, the more easily it's popped.
Yeah.
If you keep your ego small, it's not very easily popped. There's not the pressure on it. But if it expands, and it's bullshit, it's an illusion. It's an illusion. Life can humble anybody, anytime, any second.
And one of the most beautiful and one of my favorite things about that is something that I learned, I'm pretty sure in a book that you recommended, is when you do notice that your ego is popping, or like if anything is bothering you, like say if somebody said something to you and it bothers you, or something in your life is just causing some sort of strife, like that's a moment to stop and kind of reflect and realize, okay, what part of my ego is this rubbing against that is bringing these limitations for my life? Of just learning the fact that every single time that I'm offended, or every single time that anybody is offended, is simply our ego. Because
it's good to be present, right, and live in the moment. But at the same time, But at the same time, I'm not that fucking special. You're not that fucking special. Yep. Right? And that's okay. There's 7 billion people on this planet. Yeah. It would take you 11 days to count to 1 million. It takes you 32 and a half years to count to 1 billion. You cannot count every second, every person on this planet. There's that many people, and they all got problems. And the thing about us Americans, I love being American. I love our country. But there's people that live, their tribal cultures live all around the world, that live in, they have very little resources, but they're happy. And it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, and I call it the fog too. It's like if you're middle, upper class American, or maybe other countries too, and it's like, oh, when I get this promotion in 3 months, I'll be happy. When I can upgrade my car in 3 months, I'll be happy. When I can get the new cell phone, I'll be happy. And then the people in the poorest countries, when they meet their daily necessity of food, shelter, and water, and then they play all day. And it takes a tribe, it takes a village, right? And that's one of the coolest things about, especially the older cultures, I would call them, is they all work together.
Yeah.
Right? They're all contributing to each other.
No.
So,
go ahead.
Say what you're gonna say.
Yeah, like nothing great was ever accomplished by one person, you know, like it takes the tribe, it takes, you know, even how you said, nobody understands everything. You know, the world is so complex that no one person can understand even a good fraction of the whole world. It takes a, you know, a community, a tribe with different skills and talents to be able to work together and work with your tribe and to contribute to your tribe to really, you know, understand what's going
Yeah,
on and
the three pieces of the pie, right? You get this little piece, little tiny sliver. I know what I know. You get a little bit bigger sliver of the pie. I know what I don't know. And the biggest piece of the pie is I don't know what I don't know. And so it's complete arrogance, especially the pursuit of power is a very weird thing to me. And that could be a whole podcast, is people that pursue power. Because to pursue power externally means that you lack power internally. Because anybody that has complete control of themselves and has inner peace, the last thing they want to do ever on the planet is control other human beings. And so it's almost a linear scale where if I'm 70 years old and I pursue power, I'm 60 years old and I need to be part of everything and own everything and control minds and all these other things, then I must be completely 100% void internally, because I think it's a linear scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's back to the saying of humans are compensators, you know, like what we, you know, mirror on the outside is just, or what we see in the outside is just a mirror within ourselves of, you know, the way we treat other people is usually the way we treat ourselves or wish we could in some way, you know?
Yeah, it's like a unquenchable hunger that people, they're trying to.
For sure. For sure. What do you think, Edwin?
I was going to pull up a beach chair and just watch this. This was getting really good, but we are an hour and 21 minutes in. Will, just curious what you're feeling, what you want to conquer next.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm feeling pretty good, Matt. Man, thank you so much for joining this conversation, dude. We could go for hours and hours. You know, I think we need like a whole little series just with me and you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that'd be really cool. But you know, we talked about the stuff that you're looking to accomplish now, from just becoming like the best firefighter and the best dad, and you know, raising those kids. But you know, my nephews, by the way, my awesome nephews who have been, you know, huge inspirations to me as well. I have a photo of Matt and the boys just up above in my room that keeps me motivated every single day. But you know, the question I want to kind of end it up with is, Matt, I like the 6-phase meditation because it has you picturing, you know, one of many reasons, but it has you picturing where you want to be in 3 years. And you know, I know that you're going to be hitting a four, you know, in your 40s in the next 3 years. So I want to know, where do you see yourself when you hit 40?
So, okay. Like I said, my pursuit is internal, right? Yeah. So I think where most people would answer this question, they'd be like, oh, I'm going to be, you know, maybe I'd be at this state, maybe I had a promotion at work, or maybe, you know, those kind of things, you know, or I'd buy a new Harley or something, right? I have this thing. I've been pursuing it for a long time and I fall short consistently, and it's my next level. I call it the next level. And we talked about it, but it's my pursuit. And I inch at it. I have to fix things or improve things myself, but I want to reach my next level. I want to reach 100% self-discipline. I want to control what I think, control what I feel, and control what I do. And I'm constantly in pursuit of that. And I know the recipe. It's a recipe. Everything is a recipe. And it's pretty simple. You know, like this morning I woke up and I didn't, my girlfriend took a while to leave. So I woke up, did my 100 burpee pull-ups just to break a sweat. And then I did my 15-minute cold thing, right? And did my 6-phase, you know, and that takes me 2 minutes while I'm laying in bed. Those kind of things, that's part of the recipe, right? Same thing, I go throughout my day and I set my mind right, so I'm more likely to be one in accordance to nature. but I'm also less likely, as you said, to just react, right? React when you need to react, right? Those are instinctual reactions, danger scenario type thing. But any other type of scenario, think your way through it.
Yeah.
Let your body take over when you need your body to take over in a survival-like situation. Other than that, use your logic, use your reason. My goals have nothing to do with anybody else. They have nothing to do with material possession. It has to do with consistency is accuracy. And there are days where I'm dialed in, and there are days where I fall short. And you also don't want to take the shame of the days you fall short into the next day, because that's not good. So, presence, I always said too, and Will's talked about this. To me, I have really two lists. I have my capabilities list and my shit to do list. I'm not, the way my brain works is most people, I always thought maybe I'm wired different, but they're like, oh, yay, on Saturday, I get to go do this because it's fun, right? Or like, I don't work that way at all. I have two lists, and I'm constantly working on those lists. The one thing that I've gotten a lot better at is when I'm with my kids, I'm like an 8-year-old. Like, I chase them around, we wrestle, we fight, we play sports, we have fun. I disengage from all my pursuits of performance. But I'm trying to perform the best in my life, and the way I do that is I take control of myself. And I hold myself accountable, and each day I grow. And just like I had the 6-phase morning meditation, a very simple journal entry I have at the end of the day, it would kind of be considered a stoic practice, is I write down, what did I do right today? What did I do wrong today? And if I could relive today, how would I redo it? And with what I did wrong today, that's not a shaming of myself. That's just, what did I do wrong today? It's just calling it what it is. Call a duck a duck. And then the third one, if I could relive today, how would I relive today? Well, that's already because a lot of this shit you do day after day. So that's going to program me for how I'm going to attack tomorrow. And with that too, also like Sir Isaac Newton, he figured out too, that if you visualize everything you did today from start to finish in chronological order, you actually connect the neurons, you make yourself more likely to turn short-term memory into long-term memory. You become sharper. So it has a secondary effect.
Well, so you're saying that Sir Isaac Newton was doing this at nighttime after the day, he he reflected and seen his whole day again?
Yeah, he figured out that made him, and it's just like the power of visualization, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you try to visualize something and it's a struggle. And then other times you try to visualize something and you're like, boom, I can see it clearly, exactly. My last job had a lot of steps to keep things safe, right? And I can visualize 35 steps where we have an issue and I got to fix the issue. I can come up with the 37 steps and know exactly what people need to do. But there's other times you can't. Like jujitsu. Jujitsu is, for me, jujitsu, that's a separate thing, but two things I really, as far as externals, as far as that question is, and within 4 years, I want to kill all the meat I eat. So I'm starting to hunt, and it's backcountry bow hunting, and I think it would be extremely challenging. And so I'm doing that. And then jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu, it's the same as like my races. I'm not doing it to win or to be tough. I go to a place where there's some high level black belts and they kick my ass.
You do it to get beat up.
I do it to get beat up. And it's absolutely incredible. Like, sometimes we'll do this 10 5-minute rounds where I roll through the different black belts. And I get tapped 7 out of those 10 times, right? And it's just survival. And I'm strong. I'm super strong, but I'm not. I'm trying to learn to be more skilled. But the next day, like, I'm zen. Like, I'm forced into this flow state because it's a difficult environment where it takes all my faculties to survive and do well, which I am addicted. That's a whole separate conversation, but I'm addicted to that, like being on a big fire call or hard training or jiu-jitsu, those things that cause all my mental and physical focus to be able to survive. I'm high on life for a week after those things. It's an incredible thing. But jiu-jitsu, it gives me two things. One, it gives me that zen because, I get to go against so many people that are way better than me. And it forces me to focus, and it forces me to be in the moment, and it forces me to be 100% present, which is a cortisol dump because it's a flow state, which is also good for my natural hormones and everything else like that. It's good on so many levels in brain chemistry. And the secondary thing is there's something about jiu-jitsu that turns your visualization meter up all the way. Because you got your ass kicked and you're sitting there at night and you're thinking about, how do you do that to me? You know? And I thought I had him, but then he got my arm or my neck or whatever else, right? And you're visualizing those positions and you're like, okay. And all of a sudden your brain, just like any other muscle that needs to be worked in order to grow or expand or be better, now you're visualizing yourself doing something all the time. So then you get really good at it. And then all you got to do is start visualizing who you want to be. And then each day you get a little better at your self-discipline and your accountability. The thing about the three question thing, right? You know, what did I do right today? What did I do wrong today? And what could I have done today? Or how would I, if I could relive today, how would I do it? Is people, they read all these, and I've read a lot of books too. I read half of the book Socrates last night because I haven't read it in a while, so I figured I'd bust it out. And it's good, but it's simple, right? Socrates, he asked a lot of questions. He was good at asking questions. Where's it going with this? What did he right today? What did I wrong today? And what I should have done today. Oh, I don't want to lose my train of thought.
It was a good one too, Matt. I could tell this was going to be epic. Come on. Yeah. What was it?
Yeah, you were saying that you were reading a lot of books and that you read a lot of books.
Here we go. I got it. Sorry. I'm sorry. Apologize. So people, they read a lot of books, right? And they're looking for answers. I want you to give me the answers for me. And so, and this is the whole, like, the inner peace thing. So take that, right? I want you to give the answers for me. And the reason you would journal at the end of the day and come up with these three things is the only person that can unfuck you is you. The only person that can fix you is you. The only person that knows your real flaws and your real strengths and what you need to really improve on is you. And the way to do that is to recognize patterns. And if you have this journal where you answer 3 questions at the end of the day, you're going to start recognizing the patterns. And so if every 2 weeks on my 4-day, I drink and that pisses the next 2 days away, well, there's a pattern. So maybe I shouldn't drink on my 4-day or whatever else, right? Yeah. You start recognizing the patterns in yourself and the patterns you need to fix.
For sure. I love that. I mean, that's why I got this whole book right here. And that's really what that was for me, is learning all the stuff from you and me just kind of taking inventory of my days and, putting everything up here into paper. It made me realize all of these different patterns, and then from that time of self-reflection where I was sitting in meditation, I was noticing, the patterns of these things coming up, of these thoughts that don't serve me, that bring me down, or these thoughts that do serve me. And just noticing the patterns, like you said, helped me to be able to be better the next day, and then to grow the next day and to be able to contribute more and to be just a better version of myself.
Yeah. Was there anybody who watched this live thing?
Yeah, we actually we've had a total of 7 that were live, and 4 of them are still here. Braden, Ian, Ike, Jenny, thank you for all being here. Wow.
Yeah, man, I've seen 8 at one point. Yes. So we got some people on live, and like I said, it's going to be posted on YouTube later. So, so if you do guys have any questions, put it in the comments below on here, or even on the YouTube later on, and we'll do another episode with Matt. Matt, is there anything else that you want to touch up on or say?
No, I'm good.
He said no. Well, man, what about you, Edwin? What's a good way to end this thing?
I think a good way to end this is we started the conversation with you telling us the value that your brother has had in your life. I think the only way to end this is to have Matt talk about you now. What's the value of Will Grant in your life now, Matt?
Hopefully I've brought some.
What's that?
I said, hopefully I've brought some value.
Oh, actually, so the student becomes the teacher. I have my moments of weakness. I really do. And I have my, sometimes for me, I have an overactive mind, right? We could get into any subject, and I've overanalyzed it and broken it down and tried to figure it out. But I also, at the same time, don't have enough of an ego to say that my conclusion is any kind of conclusion. But I come up with basically my hypotheses for things. I have an ability to see things from different perspectives and break down the pie. But I'll get caught up sometimes in things that I don't have control over. It. I am human, and me and
barely, but you're human.
What's that?
I said you're barely human, but you're human.
But there's been quite a few times actually where I'm talking to Will, and he's putting me right back on the path, and that's where, you know, I'm older than him. I've experienced different things, right? We have a different life path. But there's something when, you know, maybe had I not opened the door for him long ago, you know, he wouldn't be able to show me this room that I need to be looking in right now, you know. And that's what it comes down to, is it's now, you know, still, you know, they say iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel, right? And when you got, and it's exponential, it's a weird thing when you have, you know, the mastermind theory, as Napoleon Hill would say, but when you have multiple minds coming with the greatest intention and a singular goal, then nothing, you know, now it's super powerful. Like what I can do on my own is not nearly as powerful as what I could do, you know, if me and my brother are on the same page. And we've talked about lots and lots of things that we'd like to do, you know, like joint efforts to contribute to people. He's chipping away at me too on, I would never even have met you, Edwin. Like we would never have done this, because I didn't even have social media before he basically, like, he told me he was out of my comfort zone. Is how he's like, what are you scared, you know? And I kept it real low profile, you know. And that's the thing with me, is I've always been kind of very in my own head, right? So there's pros and cons to that too, right? Some of this stuff is strength, but some of it is also weakness, right? You need to, you know, willing to connect with people and collaborate with people and those things, because I'm going to get a lot of growth from that too, just the same as me working with people that I consider better people, you know, better than me. So yeah, that's how I would end it. He's improved me as much as I have improved him.
Well, I can't think of a better brotherly relationship than that. That's awesome. We did have one question sneak in under the radar. Braden is asking, is there a book either of you would recommend to someone who really doesn't read but wants to start, a book that's left a big impact on you? Where would you tell somebody to begin?
I think Will would say the same thing. Power versus Force. That's a starting point. That's a great key to say there's more to this life than the external. Yeah. And it's a great breakdown of that.
Yeah, Power versus Force was definitely the first book that I got from my brother that made the biggest impact on just turning my shit around. And also another one that he gave me, but he actually gave me this book before I could finish a book, so before I started meditating. But I read pretty much most of it, and it's spot on, and that's Power of the Subconscious Mind. You know, he mentioned that earlier. And, you know, if you're looking for two books, or one book, definitely pick one or both of those, Power of the Subconscious Mind and Power versus Force. And those are two great ways to get started.
Or, Will, you forgot the third, the one I wrote, Misguided in the Magnolia. That should be where everybody starts.
Yes, Misguided in the Magnolia. You can't forget that one too. And where do we get that one, Edwin?
Amazon, baby.
Oh, well, there you go. All right, so now you got 3 books to start with, guys, and then let us know how you like it.
Awesome. Well, Will, I'm going to let you close this out. I'll let you say goodbye.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And like I said, leave any recommendations for any future topics in the comments below. And thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. We definitely need an episode 2, 3, all the way to probably who knows long, but we need to keep doing this, Matt. I will see you soon in person sometime this summer, and I'm excited to have some more chats.
Love you, bro.
Love you
Matt,
too,
nice
bro.
to meet you, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Edwin.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for showing up today. Bye-bye.
Later, gentlemen.